just give the average Joe an insight of what's it like playing at this level.
Friday night's always been a personal favourite of mine. You've got the long weekend. Everyone's just wanting that release, that stimulation, just to watch a macabre sport of gladiatorial confrontation. And you feed off that as athletes. Like, you love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
G'day, good evening, good morning. Welcome to the Dropped Kickoff for another week. I am Nick Wasiliev. You know who I am. And it's the usual affair. We're back to square one in the long storied history of the Chinese Gooseberries playing a small Kangaroos. We've come up short once again. It is, of course, I'm talking about the All Blacks, the Kiwis, beating us out 33-13 in Wellington to wrap up the Rugby Championship and clean sweep us in the Bledisloe Cup for another year. God fucking damn it. But I am joined by a man who has first time back on the pod for a little while, the one, the only Madawi man himself, Josh Murphy. Josh, welcome back.
Cheers, Nick. It's good to be back. It's always a pleasure to talk rugby with you, sir.
Dink, thank you very much. It's likewise right back at you. And let's just dive headlong into this game, because I think we've been kind of talking about how the Wallabies have been going in this tournament, everything around it. And first question right off the bat, your thoughts, first of all, on how you think the Wallabies have been going so far, because one win from 6, there was a couple of ugly scorelines in there. But has there been improvement?
Well, I think if you look at the statistics, it's been a fantastic improvement. You go back to the basics, which is where we were just getting killed, right? Especially at the World Cup, the basics weren't good enough. Defensively, attack-wise, handling, and just obviously, discipline. Cards left, right, and centre. And, you look at it now, minimal to no cards. Lineouts have been absolutely amazing. Our defense, you had Carlo, when Carlo Tizzano was in, Carlo Tizzano, 100% completion rate. Fraser McRae comes back and just blows it out of the park again. Wilson at 8, I think, has been an absolute masterstroke, and his defensive effort in the last Bledisloe game was, something to behold. He tried a lot. He did try to do a captain's knock, and some things didn't go his way. But, defensively, he was one of the strongest, one of the highest tackle counts. I think we've got to look at the positives. It's a long game. I know that we've said that for years, and it does hurt when we lose. Don't get me wrong, I shed a tear and drank a few beers over it. But at the end of the day, plenty of positives to look at, plenty of players to keep an eye on. And I'm really excited about, the next tour. I'm really excited about next year. I think that if we can keep the same core group of players with a few different changes and the same core, coaching team doing it the way they're doing it, 2025, look out. The shit that we're going to be able to complete is going to be insane.
There was good bones. You saw the good bones. Bar, I think, the South African performances, and even there was a couple of positives, but we were effectively played off the park by a side that, let's call it how it is. They're 7 years into their development and they're playing like it. The team that has won 2 World Cups and absolutely trust the system that they've got. I think there's a lot of positives to take from it. And, considering I thought we were really staring down the barrel of not winning a single game, to be in the race in several of them, and then also to come away with that Argentinian win, I think there is positives to take from it. And yeah, we're bottom of the ladder and we're bottom of the pile, but I think it's also a bit of a reflection of just how far we have to climb, but how good we could actually get when we get there. And I think we can't really summarise it much better than this performance in Wellington, going down 33-13. But we were talking about this just before we started recording, because the scoreline is that an accurate reflection of the contest? Because I don't think it is.
No, there's no way that's an accurate. reflection. I think one of the hardest parts is when your head drops, you run away from structure, and it's a team thing. It's not just one person. The team does it, right? And that's from grassroots up. It doesn't matter who you are, right? Something just goes against you, and holy shit, the world ends, and you got to try and get yourself out of it. We just didn't get out of it. We didn't go back to basics. We didn't go to the plans that were provided by the coaching staff. That's just where we faltered, and then we just couldn't make it back up. And then it was quick points, and that was the end.
I do think for 55 minutes of that game, we were right in it. I really did. I really thought we were right in it. It was like I thought we came out of the gates firing. I got the sense that after the Sydney match, and we kind of talked about it with Mr. Hartman previous pod, that the players felt like at the end of that game that they should have won that one, and that they probably they came off the field ready to play again or hungry to keep playing. And I reckon 5 more minutes they probably would have won that match. Just because of how much momentum they had, and they played like it for a good 50 minutes or so. The big difference, though, was that you could see the effort and exertion and the heart that they had to earn every single point. The contrast, though, when the All Blacks got the ball, they made scoring points look easy, which is just it would be such a disheartening thing to throw everything in the kitchen sink to get a try, and then within a few minutes the All Blacks just do one of the crazy things they do, the insane counter-attack, and then suddenly you're back under the post again in no time at all. But, there was a key moment for me, which was obviously they scored the try right on half-time, as, the All Blacks do. They score that. They really focus on the 5 minutes either side of the half. They get that try on half-time. Wallabies are still in the match. And I really noticed something in that second half when up until the Tamati Williams try, that interestingly they didn't go and have a look at again because it looked a bit contentious. I was like, are you sure that was grounded or held up or not? But I was really impressed. That 15 minutes of up until that Tamati Williams try finally went through, you could tell the Wallabies were determined to not let that score. And they barely got any ball in that second half. They barely had the chance to fire a shot, and it was 15 minutes of solid defence of the All Blacks hounding that line, of the All Blacks really pushing and making that Wallaby side try to push that Wallaby side to capitulate. And frankly, the Wallabies didn't get much ball for much that second half at all. I thought to come away with only 2 tries scored against you in that second half actually wasn't that bad of an effort, even though the problem was that they were only, I think it was a converted try behind at half-time, or less than a converted try behind at half-time, which makes it look much worse at the end of the day.
Well, that's it. And, that's when they weren't doing that retreating defence, right? The defence was continuously moving forward. They were meeting the player. They were making the tackles. They were stopping the offloads. That 15-minute period is probably... compared to, in comparison with the second half of the first, but as though, that's the best rugby I've seen in a fair while by the Wallabies, right? It's heartbreaking because, the determination, the effort's there, the way that they're trying to continue to move forward all the time, even with the scrutiny, off the field and even from the sideline at times, I love the sport for its, continuous momentum, and we've still got that momentum and we're still moving forward. But, 55 minutes, one single try, and then, the powers that be try to take on the extra effort. That attempted short side play where Wilson drops the ball, if he gets that, keeps that into contact, we had a blindside try. Absolutely, because we had 3 players tag in on him, and it just had to be a pick up from the base. If they hadn't wrapped, it was scored in the corner. That's just huge, right? There's all these different things about, what's the next thing you're going to do? How are you going to operate? And credit to him, mate. He's worked really well, and as a captain, I really rate him. And the thing that gets me to say that is when the referee's got to tell you to be quiet, you've done the right thing.
Yeah, I reckon I do actually think that Wilson... Do you reckon Wilson's a long-term captain? I think he is.
Absolutely.
I reckon he is.
As long as the injuries stay well, his age is right, his position's right, so it's long minutes. He leads by the front. I think it's a fantastic option.
Yeah, the thing that's real I've really noticed, and I don't know if there is probably a correlation to it. You could probably agree on it, but I think our discipline has been night and day the moment he showed up. I think how many we conceded like more than a yellow card a game for probably I think it was the last 12 to 13 games before he was coming into it. Our discipline was shocking.
Yeah.
In the 4 matches that he's been captain, how many yellow cards have we had? 1, and that yellow card was at the 80th minute in that terrible Wallaby loss in Santa Fe when Andrew Kellaway got sent to the bin after the last try had been scored. So it makes no difference anyway, regardless, because the game's already over straight after they convert the try. But I think his discipline has really like his leading from the front, leading with actions approach galvanizes the rest of the side. And now it's just a matter of doing things consistently. But like going back to that point you make, just those execution of those key moments. I mean, that Gordon try that he just fall on it, mate. Fuck, just like I could see he was just determined as all hell to try and guarantee it because like Beauden Barrett had lost the ball. And suddenly there was the line begging. Everyone in his cap was saying just fall on it and score. And of course they managed to mess it up with the line begging. God, I just think to myself, what timeline would we be in if he grounded that try? Because it would have been an absolute like wind in the sails moment if the Wallabies scored quickly like that.
Yeah, and again, it comes to the excitement. Even if you're a professional player, mate, you get excited, you get anxious, you get nervous. All these things happen. It was just one of those spirit of the moment situations. And yeah, Coach Killer, you can use your torso to score the try.
Just anything. All you need is downward pressure. Like use it all. Anything. For God's sake, but yeah, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I reckon, as much as it feels like the same result over again, I'm not too downtrodden about this. And I think that looking forward at this, I'm thinking I can see where they're going to go. I can see 2027, if we keep this up, I reckon I'm going to. I cannot wait to watch this side grow and build. Lions, it's too soon, personally. I think the side is still growing and still building, and it really highlights how much of a kamikaze go that Schmidt is having, because he's basically got 1 year before the best players from 4 nations turn up to play next year. Like, I think there's few assignments harder than that is, and if he can even make that series respectable, then he has done a phenomenal job, in all honesty, because
you never know. The Lions might take a picture out of France's book and just put a 3rd-tier team to basis. You don't know. But, we can't all count blessings. No, but look, I think we'll be positively surprised when it comes to the Lions tour. I think the changes that are happening, the player movements, moving into Super. I think everyone's sort of coming together to build for what's next in Australia, and with the rugby and the hosting, I think that we've just got a really positive runway for just Rugby Australia in itself to really get behind and build properly, and the players to take, that as the wind in their sails and watch us, attend and look at the numbers from Bledisloe 1, like that's cool. Like we haven't seen that for a while. That's mad. Like, I just think there's just so many positives happening. We're about to move forward, and there's no negatives for me. You can repair the basics. You can go back to structure, but the players want it right now, and that's where I'm stoked, because the players actually want it and they're putting in the effort, and I am loving every second of that.
Even regardless, win, draw, or loss, you can see that they care, and that is all you need, effectively.
Well, there's been some times on this podcast we've said that they didn't care, did they? We said it looked like they just gave up, and I think that's the biggest turnaround. And just Joe Schmidt's got something in that water down there, mate. I can tell you now, and they're all buying in on it. So, I think we as diehard fans and as people that want to talk about rugby all the time, and there's just so many positives now. We need to get behind them, and we need to believe in it. And it's all going to come together. It's taken its time. We've gone through our slump. We've seen other nations and countries go through the slumps. We're through it. We're moving forward now. Let's continue and let's support it.
What do you think success then looks like on the spring tour? Out of curiosity, then, because I don't know if we're going to it's a Grand Slam tour, which I know we haven't pulled off a win on a Grand Slam since 1984. But I do not think that when this team is on their best day, they are ranked. They are the 10th ranked side in the world. I don't. I don't think that is. I reckon. If they can knock off Argentina, they can certainly knock off a team like Scotland. They can definitely knock off Wales. We've seen that. England, I think, is building quite nicely, actually. In all honesty, under Steve Borthwick, for all of the hubbity do you hear there, and of course, Ireland is just another level right now. Ireland and South Africa, those are the gold standard at the moment when it comes to rugby in the world right now. But I can see us being in a few of these games, coming close, and maybe one, maybe two wins, or do we even need to look at it as wins anymore?
I think we just need to look at it that our completion rates are high, our basics are high. That what we're really doing is we're putting it to the teams for 80 minutes. And I don't care how good your team is. I don't care how, if you're the power nation right now of Ireland or South Africa, it don't matter. If you play against those teams for 80 minutes, they struggle. If they don't get quick points or they don't get turnaround, counter-attack tries and points, All Blacks are a prime example of that. You start them with the ball and you keep them crunched into the ground. They don't score points, do they? They freak out and then they make mistakes. But all of those big teams are like that because they're not used to it. So if we can do a committed 80 minutes, that means that we are 100% back in this. And that's what I want to see. That you can do that for me, 80 minutes, and I'm in love. Don't care if you win, lose, or draw. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to pull from that. I'm also curious to see what they're going to do with the whole Australia A team. 64 players are going over there, which is insane. That's pretty much
fantastic.
Yeah, I know, it's awesome. I can see exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get as many players exposed as possible because when the Lions roll into town next year, I reckon these particular matches are going to have such a big difference to them. But my God, so many players. It's just super interesting. Also, it
is super interesting. It's fantastic. And we've been, I've spoken about it for years. It's even on the pod, a couple of my pods ago when I said we need to bleed more into rugby. We need wider platforms. We need, right all the way down to grassroots. When you've got representative carnivals, you need wider platforms. You need wider availabilities for players to come in and go. Right now you've got the championships on. I follow the Corellas and the Cockatoos. They both come through with the win today. But look at how far all of those players have come from. You got a couple of boys in Newcastle and the Hunter Wildfires playing in the Stockman's Cup. You've got all these opportunities, and this is great. 64 players. That's fucking brilliant. Now you've got these boys getting a taste for it, touring and seeing what it's all about, learning and developing from the top down, and that's what it needs to be. You need to replicate the top at the bottom. There is no funnel. It's a straight goddamn line, and everyone does the same thing. And I just think that it's a world of support. And be a little bit cheeky if your dad's an NRL legend and you're signing with the Waratahs, Mr. Fitler. Obviously, things that we don't know. It's something like that. No, but that shows you, right? Some of these kids, just his name would get him, $250,000, $500,000 contract in league, right? But he hasn't. He's taken a 1-year deal. He's coming across because he knows the game's, it's better than league. Fuck league. But essentially, it's the proof's in the pudding, right? You're seeing players come in. You're seeing people do things that, coming from the outside in. How much have we had, how much negative press have we really had besides the score lines at the moment? Not too much. I think that's a really, really big positive compared to what it was with the Eddie Jones bullshit. That's fantastic now. And these positives are real positives. Statistically, we're improving. Scoreline, so what? It didn't reflect the last game. Move on. Let's get going. Give all these kids opportunities, and let's watch the Australian rugby platform grow again.
I do agree with you. I reckon the Australia A program, reintroducing that has been, I reckon, one of the best things they can possibly do, and making it an annual, getting those annual test matches for that comp out makes such a huge difference. Just more players exposed at that higher level makes such a difference. And I'm really excited to see how Joseph Suolahi goes. I reckon he's going to absolutely. He did like a presser talking about, he wants to be on that tour, and I just disregard the fact he's, everyone says, oh yeah, he's meant to be paid to say that. He's getting paid the big bucks to say that. Dude cares. He sounds like he's hungry, and I can't ask for more than that from a player. I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but I mean, I've had to write a couple of articles on Zach Fittler, and people are watching. People know about it. People are interested in that name and that individual. And if you've seen any of the videos of him pushing off blokes, there was a viral video, if you can find it, of him bumping off a Queenslander in the under-16s comp a few years back. If he gets some more bulk on him and more of the rugby technicalities and smarts to him and improve the technique of his game, he's has the makings of a very, very good player. Which I mean, 105 kilos already. He's already the biggest centre in the Waratahs squad, and I'm just far out. That's gnarly if you're coming up against someone that big.
That's it. And the cool thing is that I see, we'll touch on Sully and Marky Mark, right? They basically swapped. That's what I'm looking at it like. They've just swapped clubs. That's the job. That's what they've done. It's just been a personal trade that's been publicised. That's how I'm looking at it anyway, so I don't look at that damn price tag. But what we see there is that, he's making a bit of chirp, he's getting a bit of notice, but he's going to bring those league guys across to listen to that chirp, and that's just going to give another couple of eyes on screens moving forward. And if we do the right thing with media, we'll be able to play on that a little bit, which is fantastic. Fittler, we should be playing on it as well. It's all these opportunities external to those guys. It's just nice to see though that we're just getting seems to be content coming up for advertising for our sport, for our code, for our passion, that is also bringing more viewers and more people that wanting to see the sport now. And I don't care where they come from. My God, if there's some PGA Tour golfer that can play rugby and he makes it, fan-bloody-tastic, right? Bring him over. But the point is that there's so many positives. I'm so excited about it. I can't, I bleed the gold. I just can't wait to see what comes from it. And, but I want a reality check to Sully. He's got to play a game with the Waratahs first before he does anything. If he doesn't give away a card in his first 3 games, I'll believe him. He's
going to make... Yeah, even that wouldn't be so bad because the boy's trying and he'll be getting involved. I mean, the dude's played plenty of rugby, so it'll just be a matter of a couple of games to adjust, and then you'll be right.
I don't know, mate. He gave away a red card and for an Origin game, didn't he? First time.
Oh yeah, true that. Well, freaking Welsh had it coming.
Yeah, that's true. But still, we're a bit rougher in those rules, mate. I think.
You wouldn't be able to get away with a few of those tackles, eh? He'd be a bit all over the shop. Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day as well, I reckon if the Wallabies really start to get results from those if they're starting to believe, and the moment they start to believe, it just the order of averages will tell you that the wins will come eventually. I reckon it's amazing to me how quickly the narrative can turn when you get some W's under your belt.
Well, why don't we talk about the next narrative then? What about the Wallaroos narrative? My God.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's I mean, God, I have been in such a conflicted headspace about the Wallaroos this year, and we'll lead into that now because like obviously there was a big announcement earlier this year that like at the start of the year that they were now going to finally make that transition. They were coming up with a tiered system. The players would start to actually be paid a reasonable wage. Obviously, everyone will tell you that it's that you want more from it, but I rather progress heading in the right direction than no progress at all. And I also really like Jo Yap. I think she's, obviously this was a big opportunity for her in terms of improving her, her credentials as a coach. Up until this point, it has kind of been a bit of a slow. It has been a bit of a slow start. I mean, I think their attack improved off the bat, but defence felt like it had really fallen off, particularly in those two Kiwi games, conceding 60 plus points each. In that result, and that Ireland game and Wales game, I was like, oh no, are we in trouble here? But just like that, what a difference a week makes. 37-5 to kick off WXV2. I know that Joe was like, we want to win this comp. No hyperbole, we want to win this comp. And I had my doubts going into it, but tell you what a phenomenal game. Especially just the breaking. What I loved about it. It was 10-5 at halftime, and they worked on it, but it was the final slow deconstruction of Wales that led to the floodgates opening. There was something very classic about that. The moment they
I think they flipped the switch on what they should have done the game before, and I think they realised that. The line running, the short balls, the angles, and simply just keeping the ball alive, like that. Just once they got through that first half, they've seen everything. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that halftime chat because I reckon that was legitimately you do this, you win that game. I want nothing else from you but do this, this, and this. Do you understand me? Yes. See you later. Like that would have been the best halftime conversation to be privy to.
Yeah, I do think that what really I was so impressed about, getting really impressed about with this side. And you saw it in the Fiji game when the girls get on a roll. They really get on a roll. Like you see some of the scores and tries that they get. That second half, once the floodgates opened, were some of the best tries I've seen all year. I mean, Eva Kapani's try to give us the lead going into halftime was like that's the stuff of dreams right there. I reckon just similar to the other viral video that circulated last year when she just carried 4 Welsh players over the line and found a way to score. And then Maya Stewart just comes and one-ups that with a.
I don't know what they're feeding her, but dear God, can we share it across both the men and the women's? Because that was just the strength that she must have in her hips and legs is absolutely phenomenal. To break the line, pivot, she turns the hips at one stage, almost goes backwards, swings around again, and gets back to full acceleration. What? I look at that and my knee starts hurting, man. That's not even cool. Like,
that sort of shit's illegal. You're like, no way can you get away with that.
It's like that thing. That try where she did that massive break and just kept turning and burning and running. It sort of reminded me of the old Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, because there was just a bunch of Wile E. Coyotes and she was just gone.
Yeah, she was out of here. Like the tries, I think, just the versatility of the tries and the management, like the options available in broken play is clearly, the running deep in broken play is clearly just where this Wallaroos side is at home, their bread and butter. It was helped a lot by, I think, the fact their set piece, I think, was so much better. I mean, the set piece did have a pretty good game against Wales last week, except for in Newport, bar the line out, which is where they kind of lost a lot of the dominance. But scrum was a lot better. The physicality in general play was a lot better. I think the defence advanced in leaps and bounds in that game, which was kind of really a lot of their Achilles heel going into the game. Just so many positives. It was just not like, honestly, if anyone's listening to this and you haven't watched this match, like I was, myself and Jack O'Rourke were chilling at home after chilling at my house after watching the Bledisloe. We stayed up and watched this Wallaroos game because it was only a few hours later, and it was the ultimate tonic to the Bledisloe loss. It was just like, I've never, like, I ended the night going, that was fucking awesome. Just how well they played.
But like you said it right, they broke them down. They went through piece by piece. They got in front before half time. Then they just pulled it apart, like Laurie Kramer's try. She just got the benefit of the hands on that one, mate. The way they kept the ball alive, moving down the tight five. It's just... I don't even know. I can't even say what words I want to bring to mind right now. I'm just so happy. But, you're right. It was the tonic. That was 110%. We're not going to do the naughties after a bad loss. We go and see the positives. We've just gone to the gym and done a workout after a bad day in the office. That's a great way to look at it. And, that just... that was a great try from Laurie. Yeah.
Honestly, I reckon all-round performance, they should be super happy with that. And that leads to, the remaining matches we've got. Currently, they're currently equal first with South Africa in points, but Australia sits ahead on points differential. They play South Africa this weekend. South Africa, I don't really look at the history anymore because, this space, the development of professional international women's rugby is developing so quickly. I do not believe, that we're going to see a repeat of the big wins that the Wallaroos had over South Africa many years ago. South Africa themselves picked up a win against Japan, 31-24, in the game before the Wallaroos, against a very determined Japanese side. They also knocked off the women's Barbarian side in pretty convincing fashion leading into the tournament. And then, of course, there's the Scotland game afterwards as well, which is the game I'm really worried about because I think Scotland are one of the big improvers in the Six Nations. They've always been a side kind of on a similar level to Wales that we've had a pretty good, pretty competitive against. I'm very curious as to what these next two games look like because also Scotland knocked off Italy 19-0 as well. So very good, a very well-drilled, disciplined side, and particularly on the set, very well drilled in the set piece, which has previously been the Wallaroos' undoing earlier this year.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think the South Africa game, my expectation is probably 14 plus. And the only reason that we should win that 14 plus is if they do what they did against Wales, South Africa won't keep up. They just won't be able to. They don't. Whilst they're developing and they've got fantastic coaching and incredible development at the moment. Look, don't get me wrong. We're not taking anything away from South Africa here, but I just think if they can put two performances together, the Wallaroos will win that easily. I just think that's going to be the case. I agree with you though with Scotland. That is a massive thorn in the side. I think that. Really, it's going to come down to one of those really tight games that one team is just going to crush the spirit of the other, and it's going to be like whether it's the set piece, whether it's the folding defense or the scramble defense, or just consistent support play. There's going to be one thing that is just going to be picked out by Scotland or Australia. And they're going to find that niche and they're just going to beat the shit out of it. And that's going to cause the other team to crumble. But it's 50-50 in my mind. I just think if they string two together, they can string three very easily. But Scotland, the Scotland are scary. If they're on, they're also on and they're an intimidating team.
Absolutely. And look, I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I think it'll be a great contest. Also the fact that the Wallaroos in their entire history have never won three on the trot. I would love to just see that, just a little bit of history for this team particularly, because they beat France, they beat Wales last year. They were clearly they show that, hey, we can actually beat the teams that are, the big top 4 or 5 teams in the world that seem to be all really competitive against one another at the moment. It's no longer you back England and New Zealand to be the top 2 sides in the world, but as we saw Ireland knocking off the Black Ferns, that narrative is starting to shift slowly. So it would be good for them to carve out a little bit of history for themselves as well, and say, hey, we were the first Aussie, the first Wallaroos side to not only come home with a major trophy in this WXV comp, but something equivalent as well. Do you think they'll win?
Yeah.
You back them?
I back him. I back them in all scenarios. I back them, but they have to string them together. This performance can't now be a one-off. This has to be the platform, and that's their mandatory starting. They have to start the way they finished in that second half in this next game. If they do that, there's no reason they can't finish that game comprehensively and have an absolute, smoke blowing everywhere, walking straight into Scotland. I think it just has to be consistent. Consistency works. This team's formidable, mate, and they have the cattle to do it. Like, these girls, trust me, I don't want to be on the pitch against them. That's how it is. Yeah,
it's a lot to be excited about. And honestly, for everyone who's kind of saying, oh, there's no rugby between now and the end of the year, get behind this team. I reckon there's going to be so many enjoyable matches in this WXV 2 comp to keep an eye on. Even WXV 1 as well. There's a lot of really good teams playing some solid rugby there too. So there'll be a lot of rugby to follow there as well. What we'll do is we'll probably lead into, in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably do a WXV summary and a Wallaroos summary. But to finish off this pod, unfortunately, we have some quite disappointing news, which still staying in women's rugby, which is that early today it was officially confirmed that Rugby Australia, the Melbourne Rebels, effectively will no longer take part in Super Rugby Women's from 2025. I know that there'd been a lot of discussion on trying to keep that program going, and at the time when they announced that the men's team would be cut, they said that they would try to find a way to keep the women's program going. I know that they've been trying to ask for grants from the government, from the Victorian government, to get it to happen, but only 5 teams in Super Rugby Women's next year. Pretty disappointing, Josh.
Yeah, it is disappointing, and we have the luxury of some of the contacts that we have. That we know some of the players that are going to be brutally affected by this right now. And where do they go? What do they do? I know the Melbourne Rebels, the men's, went through it. I understand that, but we're transitioning to better pay. We're transitioning to a stronger women's platform, a stronger development system in place, and we just buy one of the teams. I feel like it's 2 steps forwards, 1 step back in this situation. What I'm hoping is that there is a strong agreement that those contracted Super W Rebels players, they are able to get into some of the other 5 remaining teams, and they can go forward. They can actually push through and be comfortable and actually have some rugby still under their belt, and we don't lose them overseas, because that we're I see it all the time. I me, I'm a fanatic, right? So I watch so much rugby, it's not funny. I don't know how I'm still married. I watch the girls' game, New Zealand. I've been paying attention, over as well in the UK, and these random Aussies just pop up every now and then, and you're like, well, hold on a second.
What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at home?
Hold on a second. We have a national competition. Why are you playing somewhere else at the exact same time? And then, to me, you see it with the men. I just don't want to see it with the women to take off where they go and leave and go overseas to find better ventures. And don't get me wrong, if you're missing out on contracts, or you're missing out on those representative trials that you're aiming for, and you want to go and ply your trade somewhere else to better yourself, but to come back to Australia, I'm all for that. What I just don't want to see is these girls leave in droves, and you watch them playing in different countries and not for Australia, in Australian comps. It's disappointing. It's good to see a few of them coming back, though, noticing, that the change of the guards with a few of the players now in the Wallaroos and, those areas. And so even in the Super Women's teams, there's been a few transitions of players now, and we're seeing a lot more debutantes, a lot younger players coming through. I'm pretty certain the Development Sevens names were just released for Queensland and New South Wales as well.
Yeah, next Gen Sevens, squads dropped today.
Yep, so the squad's dropped today. So, but that's cool. But it just needs to keep happening, and we just need to keep retaining them now. Let's keep pushing up. Let's keep getting the money that they're worth, right? And they're worth as much money as anyone else, because essentially they're bringing women into the sport consistently, and it's growing. And I think that's great. It's something that, we can definitely lean on as well to build everything ongoing.
So, I know Dylan, he's kind of shared a few things in the chat on this, and one of the key messages that he sent was that that Rugby Australia, in its official press release, would aim to try and make sure that players that were contracted to the Rebels they'll try and find, similar to the men, trying to find a position for them in another team. They're going to try and do the same for the women's team, and I know that there has already been inquiries made about, from several players trying to see where they can play rugby next year. But all honesty, when it comes to, the Rebels organisation, this one almost hurts a little bit more than the Rebels, because as much as I do, of course, the Rebels men's team were the higher profile. The big difference with the women's team, I think, is that, a lot of those players played the vast majority of their rugby in Victoria. They played in the Linroth Cup. They were all local, homegrown talent. And, they didn't get a lot of wins, but you could see that side was developing. And the experience that they would have had and taken back and to develop that Linroth Cup down in Rugby Victoria would have made a huge difference. It's very disappointing to not see those women be able to play rugby in their home state anymore. And while Rugby Australia keeps saying that the standard deeply committed to Rugby Victoria and will continue to fund Rugby Victoria to support and grow the community game, how to become a professional player and get into those professional pathways becomes a lot more difficult now, because there's no local team, and there's no.
You learn and develop from mum and dad, mate. Mum and dad take you everywhere. Like, they're homegrown. They were traveling Victoria with family and friends to get to games to learn and build, right? But that fundamental growth and development is now just like the head's been chopped off. And it does hurt more. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't care what you say about the men's. The women were more consistent than the Rebels. I'm just saying, it's just one of those things. And I think there must have been something else that could have been done, whether all avenues were pursued by all parties, whether there was, that personality clash in certain aspects. I don't know. I'm not privy to any of this. I don't get paid anywhere near enough money. Actually, I don't get paid anything for it. But, we do it for the love. And, I'm seeing, even today, once that release was done, a few of the girls that I'm acquainted with, that were part of the Rebels system and even still are, they're very upset about this. And I'd like to personally wish them all the best. And I hope that their endeavours and contracts are held up and they have the ability to move on and continue to play rugby in Australia in a calibre. And we figure out some way to get that Rebels women's team back and build them as the platform, and down the track get the men's. I don't care about the men's and the Rebels. I care about the women, and I think we just need to build that platform.
Yeah, I agree. I reckon there must be some way to get them back. There must be. I can see it as a much more viable option to get them back in the short term, because the last thing I want to see happen is, the Rebels, them saying we're committed to rugby in Victoria, and then it ends with those words there. That would just be so devastating and so disappointing. But tough, a very, very tough day if you are a rugby fan in Victoria. And I hope all those players are doing okay. It sucks. I know Dylan was very, very I know that this one was particularly close to his heart as well. He's a supporter of quite a lot of those players as well, from his contacts in rugby in Victoria. So, yeah, this is a rough day for them, and I wish we had something. We wish we had some better news or to end this pod on. It's very disappointing.
It is, but you know what? If we're one voice, and we can get people to listen to this and think about it themselves, and they can throw their 2 cents in, and we can get talking about it. Sometimes just that publicity of the conversations of the general person can move things, and I think that's probably what we really need right now. And to everyone out there, just have your say, be a part of it. Don't be a dick, but
yeah.
Let's jump on and support these players and support the code, and let's move forward and create more guys like us, and girls like us, Nick, where we just can't get enough of this damn sport. And again, just live and breathe it, and it's in our blood. Yeah,
absolutely. On that, we're going to be taking probably a week or two off for this podcast. I know, having just said that, we were like, yeah, we're going to probably take a week or two off while the Wallabies have a break. We're going to do a roundup of the Wallaroos season in the WXV2 probably in a week or two after they complete their final match against Scotland. We're also going to try and line up. We've got 1 or 2 interviews in the fire as well that we're going to try and line up ahead of the spring tour, and then straight into the home stretch to cover the Wallabies on their home end of year tour. But it's been a strange old week in rugby, and now it feels slightly weird that there's no Wallabies happening, but still plenty of rugby going on. Make sure you also keep an eye on the Super Rugby under-16s and the Super Rugby under-19s comp. Both of them are really, really good. Of course, as alluded to earlier by Josh Murphy, the Australia under-18s are currently playing, are doing a 2-match tour in New Zealand, which wraps up this Sunday. First match at the time of us recording was just played out earlier today when they played the New Zealand Barbarians and won 57-47. Defence went out the window on that match, which...
That's a bit of touch football with a couple of tackles in there that game. It was definitely fun to watch, though. Don't get me wrong. And then, one other shout out as well is, we definitely want to have the Australian Rugby Shield Day. Day 1 was done today. There's 3 more days of that with all of the teams coming through. And, there's a lot of up and coming players in that we should definitely be keeping an eye out.
So plenty of rugby still happening. It's the Wallabies might be taking a break, and the Wallaroos might be in motion overseas, but the rugby does not stop yet. So please keep an eye out for that. You can follow us on the Dropped Kickoff on Twitter. If you like the show, drop us a review. Give us 5 stars. Reach out with a comment or a meme. We do love some memes. General banter and discussions. We'll respond to all of them. There's a few of us on that chat now. And we'll probably see you in a fortnight or so once the Wallaroos wrap up their game against Scotland and finish their season with the WXV2. Pleasure, Josh. Thank you for coming back on. Excited to see what happens for you in the next little while. But cheers, mate. Great pod.
Cheers, Nick. Look after yourself, mate.
We've got another week to get back on the horse and take that horse to the water, and you can ask that horse, you can say, hey horsey, do you want to have a drink or do you want to swim? And it's up to that horse to then realise what he wants to do in his life. So we're looking forward to, like I say, getting back on that horse.
And are you looking forward to getting back on the horse 6 months since we last saw you?
I don't like horses, I can't ride.
Give myself an uppercut.